I'm here at Black Hat 2019, and for me, it was a great show. I learned a lot about security operations, especially some things around people and automating processes that was really, really insightful to me. On the downside, Black Hat's become more commercial. It's kind of like RSA now. It's lost some of its grit. But let me bring in some of the other ESGers, and we'll talk about what their impressions were.
You know, in my first ESG video, we introduced the Elastic Cloud Gateway concept and talked about that a lot with vendors, about the issues around remote access, the changing perimeter, and we've known this for a while.
Yeah.
You need to consolidate platforms, and really seem to resonate, and we've seen a lot of the vendors already moving in this direction, so I'm pretty confident we're going to see a lot of traction in this space quickly.
I do too, and it's going to be driven by the user demand, because the users want fewer tools, they want central policy, they want distributed enforcement.
You know, we've seen that in our research that we've done, and the vendors are hearing that from their users, so definitely getting validation across the board.
One of the things we've talked about quite a bit over the last little while is the expanding definition of the perimeter. Definitely a theme at this year's Black Hat. Front and center there, of course, is the adoption of cloud services. Email comes to mind. There was a lot of action around email and email security.
Oldie but goodie.
Oldie but goodie. You know, we know from recent research we conducted that 47% of organizations are already using Office 365. Another 19% are using Gmail. Email is already outside of the perimeter. I attended a session, really interesting one, on attacking and defending the Microsoft Cloud. They went through a number of attacks on Azure AD, on how to steal credentials, things like, you know, phishing, of course, breach replay, password spraying, and more. Then they got into defensive measures. And Sean Metcalf from AD Security shared some alarming statistics on how many organizations are doing basic things or not doing basic things, like using multi-factor authentication for admin access to the Azure AD console. Only 8% are using MFA for admin access. So when it comes to defending the new identity perimeter, we got to be doing basic hygiene. We got to be using MFA more. There were a couple of good sessions on DevSecOps or secure DevOps, and we're certainly seeing more discussions around securing the full stack, VMs, containers, serverless, and the full lifecycle of cloud-native apps from development, build time, ship, and runtime. And we need to be thinking holistically about that from full stack and full lifecycle.
So this year at Black Hat, two areas of particular interest. First is around people really getting their hands dirty around business email compromise. And so a number of email vendors that I spoke with today have been very, very focused on this very specific problem that we know has been plaguing the industry, and doing so in conjunction with cloud-based email providers like Office 365, and providing extensions to Office 365, specifically going after parsing of the content based in the emails, the senders, people they're sending to, and exactly what's being done, and matching it all up together and trying to uncover business email compromise. On the upside side of the house, I've talked to a number of vendors, in particular about EDR and going beyond EDR to XDR, right? So there's a couple of vendors out there talking about XDR, others talking about a more broad topic around detection and response. And it's nice to see some offerings coming to market there. While a few vendors have introduced offerings, I've talked to others about offerings that are on the way. But the mindset is the same, that detection and response goes beyond endpoint. There's more to the story, and it's nice to see the vendors that have access to that data bring it together and start to correlate, reduce the number of alerts, help with prioritization. But then the vendors that don't offer a full suite of email, network, endpoint, and cloud, starting to still connect the dots through partnerships and integrations with other vendors as well.
Yeah, I think that's important, because what my research said was there are 5 things that you need for XDR. Endpoint, network, threat intelligence, file detonation, and analytics. And some people have some of those, some have others. Very few have all 5.
Exactly, and that's exactly the conversation that I had today. It's like, if you don't have these pieces, what are you doing about it? How are you going to help the buyer stitch the pieces together? And then a number of vendors talked about plans to get into some of those spaces. Others had pure integration strategies, though, which I think it totally works if you execute well.
The thing that was most surprising to me is how many companies are talking about MDR who do not really do MDR. There are varieties of MDR. There are varieties of, can you cover the whole stack? Are you looking at the network? Are you looking at endpoint? Are you looking at application layer? Are you looking at email? So, for the customer, I think it's really confusing. So in coming days, I am writing something where I'm hoping to dispel some of the mystery. So for example, having studied managed security services for years, managed security services is management and monitoring, right? So there's two parts of it.
Sure.
MDR is not managing the customer's devices and environment. It's not a management play. It is a monitoring, advanced threat detect, respond capability. So I would put MDR as a feature of MSS, and I would put it on that monitoring side of the house. So I'll be explaining it more because I'm getting a lot of requests, both from the customer, from the buyer, and from the service provider saying, do I fit in this category? Do I fit in both the MSS and the MDR? In some cases, yes. In other cases, no, they don't want to be on the management side of the house. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Management is an IT function. It is often in the NOC. It's just a commoditizing space. There's less margin for the service providers. And so a lot of folks are divesting from that. And so I think there's a lot of confusion in this acronym soup, and I hope to dispel some of that mystery.